Well, hello, and my apologies if you've just been watching, a screen with me moving around and not talking. It's Brian Barron, Director of Skincare Research with Paula's Choice Skincare, and it is Thursday, July 25th, and since it's Thursday, that's where we're landing in terms of the new day and time for our weekly live chats when I get to spend an hour with you guys and basically take as many questions from you regarding skincare, makeup, hair care, anything beauty related. And really, there's nothing off limits in that regard. So ask away. Um, and let me just check something here. Okay, it looks like I'm getting audio through there. I apologize. There was a bit of a delay. I'm learning this all over again, and then in the interim, when I wasn't doing YouTube live chats on the regular, YouTube introduced this whole new studio program, a beta version, and so some of the um, intuitiveness that I was used to from the previous version isn't where I thought, and so I could see your questions, and then I couldn't figure out why you weren't seeing me, which is kind of necessary if you want to not only see me but hear what I have to say in response to your questions. So, um, it's been a bit of a long week. Oh my gosh. And it's not over yet. But I'm here with you guys for this hour. And normally I like having a bit of like, oh, this is what's going on. And I think I think it's partially because of lack of sleep, lack of good sleep last night. But yeah, I'm a little bit like drawing a blank right there as far as like some cool stuff to share with you. But maybe some of the questions will spur things. So stick around. All right, let's get started. Alex has the first question up. He says, Hola, Brian. Happy to have you back. Thank you. I remember you saying something like supplements for skin don't necessarily work because nutrients go first to vital organs. How beneficial is the new PC supplement? Well, first of all, Alex, let me clarify that if it's something that we launched, we would never launch something we didn't feel was beneficial. Um, at one point, yeah, I'm sure I did say that either verbatim or very similar because the research wasn't there to support the fact. That was like our number one question when we started talking about doing a supplement. And I think I mentioned this in last week's chat. But the whole supplement thing was Paula's idea. I know that there's some people who are like, oh, well, somebody from outside the company suggested this, and Paula's no longer making any decisions, and nope, Paula is fully behind the supplement, and she was the one that brought it to the team. Um, Honest engine, as they say. So one of the first things we did when we were looking at what we could include in a supplement and what would be the most beneficial for a large group of people. We didn't want our first supplement to be limited in scope. For example, some brands have supplements for acne-prone skin. Not necessarily sure about those. I'd have to look at what they contain, but not everyone in our global audience is struggling with acne. But a lot of people, the majority, are struggling at one time or another with hydration, with the natural decline in hyaluronic acid, with the demands that free radicals put on the body, whether from breathing them in, from the sun, just from living. No question that the berries that we have in our supplement are health foods for everybody, no matter your age or concern. So that was kind of the thinking that went into that. And then we looked at the studies on those ingredients that showed, okay, how much, if any, of those ingredients make it through the digestive system and get to skin. And particularly with hyaluronic acid, which is naturally present in skin anyway, there's some interesting studies. Sadly, they're done on animals, but we did not and do not test any of our products on animals, but we will sometimes look at research involving animal studies because there's certain studies that are done on animals that it wouldn't be, it would be more insightful to do it on people, but for various reasons they just don't do that. I don't want to go down that road. But what we saw, and actually in this particular study, the animals weren't harmed. But what we saw in that study is that they were able to measure the baseline hyaluronic acid in the animal's body, and then they gave them a standardized dose of hyaluronic acid orally, And then they were able to measure several hours, well, I think it was as soon as 2 hours later, and then they did incremental measurements over the course of several hours looking at the hyaluronic acid content in the bloodstream and then what could make it to the skin. And they were actually able to prove they used some sort of a skin cell staining method where as the hyaluronic acid content in the skin cells increased from baseline, the cells actually changed color a bit. If I'm remembering that correctly, there may have been some other phenomenon at play there, so don't quote me on that. But that, I remember reading the study and thinking, yeah, but how are they going to really know it's getting to the skin as opposed to just stopping someplace else? So that was really cool. Then we were like, all right, this is the dose we need to use. Here's the molecular weights to look at. And what the study also showed that was kind of cool is that the part of it reached the skin as pure hyaluronic acid, and then part of it reached the skin as byproducts of hyaluronic acid as it breaks down and becomes smaller ingredients called polysaccharides, which can also benefit skin. So it's like multifactorial in terms of what it can do. And then there's similar research looking at glucosal ceramides, but what's particularly cool about the glucosal ceramides, that's another ingredient we use in our supplement. For those who haven't checked out that product yet, the glucosal ceramides really, and especially from food sources like rice bran, quick side fact, it's interesting, the amount of glucosal ceramides in rice or in sweet potato, or it's also in konjac or in the bran of rice, which is the source we used, in terms of how much rice you'd have to eat as part of your diet to get the same amount of glucosal ceramides that we're giving you in the supplement. It's a big part of the reason why glucosal ceramides as a raw material are actually very expensive. I was really surprised at actually how much they cost, but then when I learned the specialized extraction process that has to occur in order to get the concentrated amount of glucosal ceramide from the food source, it made more sense. But as I was saying, you'd have to eat a lot of glucosal ceramide. You'd have to eat a lot of rice or like a sweet potato. You can also get glucosal ceramides from wheat. We opted to not use wheat because of the whole gluten thing, and a lot of people want to avoid gluten ingredients, either for personal choice or they have a health concern, celiac disease, where it's necessary. Again, we wanted to make this supplement as broadly appealing as possible, popular as possible, for the widest possible amount of people. So I think it's a really interesting product. We would not have launched it if there wasn't research to support the ingredients actually having a benefit to skin. The interesting thing about it, though, and I know I'm kind of going on about this, but I do find it fascinating, and I'm hoping that those of you watching really want to learn about this, and this is kind of your chance to get that insight straight from me, who's working on the R&D side in terms of why we made certain decisions and why we use certain ingredients. Where was I going with that? Oh, in terms of the improvements that you can expect to see, that's harder to quantify. And it's one of those things where the more deprived your skin is, or the more sun damaged it is, the more the less likely it is to hold on or either hold on to those substances, for example, because of an impaired barrier, or is less able to make those substances at the same rate that it used to, partly because of sun damage, but just because of it, advancing age as well. It's a biological fact, happens to everybody. We don't make as much hyaluronic acid as we age like we did when we were younger. And hopefully, as we age, we're okay with the trade-off, because there's a heck of a lot of wisdom and other things that come with age that you can look on and say, I'm like myself much better right now than when I was 20 and kind of a jerk. That was about me. Anyway, the results you can expect to see, the worse off, it's one of those things where, like, the worse off your skin is, the more you're going to get from this supplement. However, I would never tell anyone to use a beauty supplement, ours or somebody else's, in place of great skincare. It is additive. It complements what you can do or what you are already doing topically to have healthier, visibly firmer, more hydrated, smoother skin that is better able to withstand environmental damage. All right, enough about the supplement, unless you have more questions about it, which I will get to. I'm going to start going through these a little bit at a faster clip. Hey Brian, this is from Fire Earth. Hi Brian, so happy to be doing live chats more often. I was wondering if the Earth Source line is appropriate for someone with dehydrated prone combination skin. Yes, especially if you are a fan of a lot of natural ingredients and you know, because it's Paula's choice, we're only using the beneficial ones. We don't mix the good natural ingredients with the ones that research has shown can be a problem, even though a lot of those problematic ones may smell wonderful. Get those scents from an essential oil or natural type candle, and then use the fragrance-free natural ingredients on your skin. I think Earth Sourced is wonderful for dehydrated combination skin. A tip though, for your oily areas, if you have that classic combination skin where your T-zone is oily, your cheeks are normal or normal to dry, what I would suggest with that three-piece set, the cleanser, the toner, and the moisturizer, we have the Power Berry Serum, which I can get to that in a second. But if you're just going for the cleanser, toner, moisturizer, that three-step routine, you'll still need sunscreen during the day. That's a separate discussion. But for the combination skin, because the Earth Source toner is a gel, it's like a thin gel. It's really cool if you've never tried it. That is likely going to be enough hydration for your oily areas. So then you could just take the Earth Sourced facial moisturizer and put that around your eyes and on your cheeks, on your neck, anywhere that in the facial area that is dry. If your forehead's dry and your nose and chin are oily, then just, basically the moisturizer goes wherever your skin is dry. The toner goes all over the place, and for your oily areas, the toner will likely be enough. If you want, like for during the day, maybe you want to save the moisturizer step in Earth Sourced for nighttime use, which would be fine. And again, it also can be used around the eyes. The Power Berry Serum, which is fantastic in terms of environmental defense during the day. Skin needs environmental defense around the clock, but I think if you're spending time in the out of doors during daylight hours, the more antioxidants you have on your skin, the better. And the Power Berry Serum is chock full of them, all from natural ingredients, non-volatile. That can go on under your daytime moisturizer with SPF, and for combination skin, the lightweight, thin texture of the Power Berry Serum will work all over. You don't need to worry about it making your oily areas feel slick or greasy. Roel says, hi Brian, so happy these chats are back. Does PC have a mineral body sunscreen in development? I miss the old Pure Screen SPF 15. I'm laughing because the Pure Mineral sunscreen had a wonderful silky lotion texture, but nobody at the company back, we were a much smaller company then, so I'm not speaking for everyone that's on the Paula's Choice team today, but nobody liked how it felt on their skin except for Paula. And when we discontinued that product officially, Paula took boxes of it. I'm sure she still has it and she still uses it, even though most of it is probably expired. I think, you need to put an expiration date on OTC sunscreens just as a matter of regulation in the United States and in some other parts of the world, but certainly for the United States where we're based. Mineral sunscreens, though, I just think because they're not they're just not as fragile as the synthetic sunscreen ingredients like avobenzone and oxybenzone and octisalate. I just think personally that they hold up longer. So it's better safe than sorry in terms of expiration dates on sunscreen. I would rather you use something that has that has not expired yet, just to be sure you're playing it safe in the sun. But if it's a pure mineral formula like that, I don't think Paula's worried, for example, about using it on her skin. But no, we do not have any more body sunscreens currently in development. I don't know that we will. It's sunscreens are a tricky period. the kind of product that we would want to make and the ingredients we would want to put in it to be able to offer that type of a formula in a size that would be appropriate, that would be logical for the body in terms of how much you need. Um, I almost want to say it would be cost prohibitive, and that what we would have to charge for that type of product, I would be worried that even if people were like, yeah, that's okay, it's Paula's choice, I'll buy it, that would still make them a little nervous or apprehensive about applying it liberally enough. And then oftentimes I still hear this at some cosmetic counters and in stores where some brands, they're selling, for example, a facial moisturizer with sunscreen, and it's over $100, and the salesperson says, if you make mention of the price, and gosh, that's kind of expensive for an ounce of product or half an ounce of product. You're like, oh, it's okay, you just need a little tiny bit, and this bottle will last you 6 months. Not if you're using it correctly, it won't. It doesn't matter how much it costs if you're not getting it on your skin in a liberal fashion. So that's a long explanation as to why we probably won't venture down the road of more body sunscreens, but never say never. There's nothing in the category of sun protection that is ever 100% off the table at Paula's Choice. And the more we hear customers saying, please do this, please make this is the kind of product I want from you, that absolutely carries weight. So please make your feedback known in other channels, not just on these live chats. I'll pass the information on, but hit us up on various social platforms, let our client services team know. As my mother used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. All right, I don't want to miss people here. Thayer says, hi Brian, as I know vitamin C is easily oxidized, and I came across a vitamin C cream from brand Orange Daily in a jar. Does that work? It would depend, actually. I'm generally not a fan of jar packaging because the routine exposure to light and to air, which are mortal enemies of pure vitamin C, which would be ascorbic acid. Never buy an ascorbic acid facial moisturizer in a jar. Just don't. It will not last long. It will not stay stable. You will literally be losing the potency of that within probably 2 weeks at best in a jar. Wow. Luckily, there are not too many of those products out there in jars where ascorbic acid is the star attraction. What's confusing is that there are other forms of vitamin C that are more stable. For example, there's a newer form of ascorbic acid that's the ingredient name is 3-O for oxygen, -ethyl ascorbic acid, and the ingredient supplier, I believe, is out of Korea, and they have some interesting research showing that that particular form of vitamin C is more stable or has a good stability profile in light and air. And then there's the fat-soluble, more stable forms like the tetrahexyldiesel ascorbate, sometimes referred to as THD. There's magnesium ascorbyl phosphate. However, even those aren't stable forever. It's just not something you can put on a shelf in a jar and open occasionally and you're still getting potent vitamin C. They'll all break down eventually. So as a general rule, I would say just avoid a vitamin C treatment product that's packaged in a jar. But if it's a small jar, if you know it's something you're going to use quickly, and if there's some other aspect of the product that you just love, and you've tried some vitamin C products in better packaging, and you're just like, oh, I missed that other product. If you're using it up quickly and it has one of those more stable forms of vitamin C, I think you could get away with that. I'm being generous. Still doesn't mean I approve of jars, but if that's the scenario you're looking at, I think you'd be okay. Alan says, hi Brian, love the 2% BHA liquid, but I hate the texture. The Resist one is much nicer. I think you mean nicer, not nicker, in texture, but the results are less prominent. I'm thinking about the 4% instead. What is the texture like? I hear you, Alan. I'm not a big fan of the 2% BHA liquid texture myself. That is, a lot of people love it, don't mind it at all. It is a big part of what gives that BHA glow that we're known for. And it's also a key solubilizer and penetration enhancer for the salicylic acid. It's one of the ingredient that creates that slip is a big part of why that product is so wonderfully effective for so many people. The pore refining treatment that you referenced doesn't have that same ingredient. It has a similar ingredient. It's still a glycol type ingredient, but it's used at a much lower level to get that water-like texture. The salicylic acid in that product is, of course, it's still pH correct, it's still effective, but it doesn't work quite as fast. That's really the main point of difference. And then, of course, actually, I shouldn't say that's the main point of difference, because with the Resist pore refining treatment, you're also getting a laundry list of anti-aging ingredients, because that particular exfoliant is ideal for somebody who's dealing with oily skin, enlarged clogged pores, and signs of aging all at the same time. It still surprises me how many brands, we're one of the only brands that have an anti-aging assortment that was created specifically for people with that mix of concerns, whereas a lot of brands, their anti-aging products are really more, they may have some brilliant anti-aging ingredients, but they're really more for dry skin. And a lot of people, particularly women, as they are going through the trials and travails of menopause, their skin might get drier, towards the end, but as they go through those years where their hormonal levels are changing, their skin can also go in the other direction and get more oily, or they could be experiencing breakouts for the first time since their teen years, and using those rich, creamier anti-aging products is going to set you up for more trouble. So the 4% BHA, which would be the advanced pore refining treatment in the Resist light blue line, not the dark blue, the light blue, that has, I use that product a couple times a week. It's one of my favorites. And I don't use the 2% BHA liquid, mostly because it's a little bit too strong for me, actually. But the 4%, I wouldn't say it's a middle of the road between the other two exfoliants we've been talking about. It does have some of that slip that the 2% BHA liquid does, but to me it feels lighter on the skin. It's a bit silkier and more serum-like. It's dispensed from a little dropper, and so when I use it, I'll just put 2, 3, maybe 4 drops on the top of my hand, and then I kind of thin it out like this, and then I'll spread it over my face. As opposed to doing a whole drop on a fingertip and then trying to move it around. Personal preference there. If you decide to try this product, experiment with different application methods and see what works best for you. I can't promise that. I wouldn't go so far as to say if you hate the texture of the 2% BHA liquid, you'll love the texture of the 4%, but there is enough of a difference that I think it would be worth exploring to see what you think, and then come back and let me know. Okay, Miriam says, hi Brian, I've heard a lot of people saying it is best to apply skincare products to damp and not dry skin as it helps them go deeper. Is there any truth to that? Not really. Pure water is a solvent, and solvents can help ingredients penetrate better, but given most skincare products are water-based, you don't really need, and then your skin's natural water content hovers around 30%. Between that and the fact that most skincare products like moisturizers and serums are water-based, you don't need to add more water. It isn't going to make a noticeable difference. Then if you use a lot of water, like if you're just misting your face and it's kind of dripping and you're like, okay, now it's time for my serum, you're diluting it to a certain degree, and I would never say mist your face and then put sunscreen on while your face is still wet, because that's going to thin out and dilute the sunscreen, which will have an impact, we don't know how big of one, on the amount of sun protection that you're getting. So generally speaking, it's just not something I think you need to worry about. It's an extra step that isn't going to make a huge difference. If the only exception would be if your leave-on products, for example, at night, are all oil-based. Maybe you like to layer different facial oils or facial oil blends. In that case, putting on water first, it's not going to help the oils penetrate any better, but it may help them go on a little easier if they tend to drag a bit. But the other thing it'll do is, because you're putting that oil layer over the water, is it'll help seal that water in, which if you have really dehydrated skin, that may be beneficial. I would rather see you use a well-formulated toner and then put the oils on top of that, because in that scenario, you're getting a lot more than just water. All right, moving on. Great song by Billy Joel. Anthony says, Brian, I hope you're well. When layering products, let's take niacinamide, for example. Do products combine percentages? If I use a 4% serum followed by a 5% moisturizer, does that make 9% on skin? I wish I had more of a chemistry way to explain this. And I said at the top of the show, I'm not at my sharpest today. However, the way I understand it is that doesn't it doesn't add up. It's not additive. You're only getting you're getting more niacinamide, but not any more percentage-wise than the highest percentage you are applying. Much the same way when you layer sunscreens. If you put an SPF 15 on over an SPF 30, it doesn't mean you're up to SPF 45. It's only safe to assume you're getting SPF 30. In theory, yeah, you're getting a little more sun protection than that, but because we don't exactly know how much more you're getting, you can only safely default to saying, yeah, I'm getting SPF 30. So my understanding is the same principle is at play with products when you're combining products with higher percentages of bioactive ingredients. But I do need to let me take a quick note on that, because I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the clearest possible explanation for that. And I'm not sure that was it. So I will follow up. Speaking of follow-up, I am still waiting to hear back from some chemist friends of mine, people that we work with, regarding, somebody asked last week about the Ordinary, the skincare brand, that their precaution about using AHA, BHA, basically exfoliating acids and what they deem strong antioxidants like vitamin C, to separate that application of those products from a product that contains copper peptides. So I'm still waiting to get a clarified answer on that. What I mentioned last week in terms of some complexation happening, it does appear to be true, but what I wasn't telling you was the whole story. So I'm getting some clarification on that, so stay tuned. Bella says, what dry shampoo do you recommend that has a good list of ingredients? Non-aerosol is okay. I don't really have a favorite, Bella, when it comes to that. I've experimented with some here and there. Living Proof had one at one point. I'm not 100% certain they still do. I actually really like a lot of their products from a formulary standpoint. There's so much sameness in the world of hair care because there is a much more finite pool of ingredients that a hair care chemist can choose from. There are only so many ingredients that you can use in a shampoo and a conditioner to do what you want those products to do. There's infinitely more you can choose from for skincare. For example, the list of antioxidants for skin is just growing every day. Putting antioxidants in a hair care product is probably going to do more to protect the formula on the bottle than it would for your hair or scalp. They just don't have a natural affinity for hair, and the benefit pretty much gets washed down the drain. However, I do like the idea, speaking of hair care, of including some sunscreen ingredients in a leave-on hair care product. There's no quantifiable way to gauge the SPF of a hair care product. You could put it on, you could test it on a bare scalp, but that would only tell you about the amount of skin protection it's giving your scalp. We don't know, there isn't a system in place to rate, for example, how a sunscreen ingredient in a hairspray or a pomade would protect hair color from fading, and that's like hair dye. And that's a big reason to even consider sunscreen in a hair care product, is to keep your color longer, because the UV light exposure is a major culprit in color fading. The other one is water, and water is much harder to avoid on your hair unless you just don't want to wash it. So let's see. Yeah, Bella, I don't. Oh, I was just as my quick aside. I think I would personally use more living proof products if I liked the smell. That's such a personal thing, isn't it? Like how a hair care product smells. I just can't stand. There's something about the way living proof hair care product smells that just drives me nuts. I can't take it. So I don't use them because of that. Isn't that awful? Like I'll look at the formula and be like, wow, that's a really innovative, cool formula, and look at the texture, and then I'm just like, oop, nope, back on the shelf it goes. That's just me. So no, I'm sorry, Bella. No, I don't have a specific recommendation. I will say though, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money on dry shampoos, again, because even more so than a standard rinse out shampoo, there are even fewer ingredients that make sense to use in a dry shampoo to get it to do what you want it to do. SN12 says, how has the research changed since last when you recommended topical ceramides application instead of oral? Well, let me be clear, SN12, we're still recommending both. You need both. The way ceramides work on skin surface to help replenish the barrier, to help prevent moisture loss, is different than how they work when you consume them orally and they make their way to skin via a different pathway. It's sort of that benefit from the lower layers of skin upwards would be the oral, and then the topical is the uppermost layers of skin, and then they pretty much don't penetrate much past that point. In the case of ceramides, though, that's okay. Where is skin's barrier in terms of how it's projecting itself to the outside world? Right here on the surface. That's where you want those ingredients like ceramides, hyaluronic acid, sodium hyaluronic, glycerin, cholesterol. You want those ingredients to fuse with and build up, not build up as in like a callus, but you want to get a nice healthy store of those ingredients in your uppermost layers so that your skin's first line of defense, its barrier, is as strong as possible. Andrea says, does taking trans resveratrol supplements orally help the skin from the inside out, or are they useless? I've seen some research, Andrea, on resveratrol supplementation, and there's some of the studies I've looked at have been about like comparing what I've seen. I don't know about specific skin benefits. For sure, an antioxidant benefit, and for sure, the amount of resveratrol and I'm getting tongue-tied on that. Trans resveratrol is the more bioactive form of this antioxidant. It is the preferred form from what I've seen for oral intake if you're considering that supplement at all. It was an ingredient at one point that we considered for our supplement when we found the berry blend that we ended up with. That is a broader range of benefits because the different antioxidants in all of those berries, they have some shared benefits, of course, because they all contain to one degree or another, they all contain different polyphenols, but polyphenols have this shared antioxidant benefit, but then each berry also has some unique aspects to it that contribute to an overall more robust system of antioxidants for free radical defense. But I mean, there's nothing, you could certainly add to that with the trans resveratrol. What's interesting is that you'll often hear about red wine consumption being, people will say, oh, red wine is healthy for you. It's a good source of resveratrol. And while there is resveratrol in red wine, the studies that I've seen, the amount of red wine that you would have to drink in order to get a beneficial slug of resveratrol that would really make, kind of move the needle, as they say, you'd be drunk. And then, of course, consuming that much red wine in a single sitting just to get the extra resveratrol, that doesn't make any sense. You're creating one problem to try to solve another. And so it's just, in that sense, it would be much easier to swallow a pill that gives you the higher amount that would require drinking a hell of a lot of wine to get. So I can take a look, though, and see, can loop back and see specifically. It's harder with antioxidants to show a definitive skin benefit, given that you can get antioxidants from a supplement, which is a nice insurance policy. You get antioxidants when you're eating healthy whole foods. You are getting antioxidants from your skincare, and then you have our bodies have a natural antioxidant defense system. So it can be hard to suss out in a study how much direct skin benefit you're getting from a specific antioxidant, and then how much just comes from what your body is able to do on its own. But the interesting thing that we don't know is how our own antioxidant system is doing. We do know that the more environmental damage you incur, the more time you spend in the sun without protection, and then as secondary to that, just aging causes your body's natural supply of antioxidants to dwindle. I could say unequivocally, without even having like a lab test, that my natural supply of antioxidants is not nearly as robust and plentiful as my 4-year-old son's. I've been around a lot longer. I've incurred a lot more damage. I did grow up in that time when we didn't really know any better about sun exposure. And in terms of sunscreens, the most you could find, if you were lucky, was SPF 8. And nobody knew about UVA protection and the importance of that. So, my son is growing up in an era where we do have all of this knowledge. Skincare is more rocket science now, and hopefully he'll benefit from that because we put sunscreen on him every day. Okay, Aphrodite. Hi, Brian. I have rosacea. Is it a good idea to use 2% BHA exfoliant? Yes, if your skin responds favorably to it. Not everyone with rosacea can use salicylic acid or glycolic acid or any type of exfoliating acid. The salicylic acid, beta hydroxy acid, has the best shot at working because of the fact that it is naturally anti-inflammatory due to its relation to aspirin. So I know a lot of people with rosacea are worried or don't think that they can use a BHA exfoliant. If you've tried a well-formulated, fragrance-free, gentle one, the kind that Paula's Choice offers, other brands offer them too, not nearly as many. But if you've tried ours, for example, and you've had success, then I would say yes, keep using it. You may find if your skin, as your rosacea progresses, you may find that you need to drop down in the amount of salicylic acid you use. Maybe you were doing really well with 2%, and down the road you'll need to switch to a 1% strength, or apply your usual strength less frequently. That would be another option to explore. And she says, greetings from Greece. Actually, I don't know if Aphrodite is male or female or how you identify, but that really doesn't matter. I'm glad you're here. And hello, all the way from Greece. Angel says, Brian, what do you think of mixing mineral sunscreens before applying them in order to create the right tint? I'm cool with it. Yep, I don't mind. Just keep in mind that when you're mixing 2 mineral sunscreens, your final SPF is not going to be higher than if they both have SPF 30, you're getting SPF 30 if you apply them both liberally, however you want to mix it. And generally, because I would be more concerned. I always have these add-ons that I have to state because I worry. I would be more concerned I would suggest doing that if you're mixing like and like in terms of texture. So 2 creams or 2 lotions, or a cream and a lotion, an emulsion, as they say, would be fine. But I wouldn't be as eager to recommend you mix a mineral spray or a mineral powder for sure with a lotion or a cream. I think something is going to get lost in the emulsification process, and there could be some formulary incompatibilities in that sense that would in turn hinder the SPF. So there's your little qualifier. Massimo says, can you use product with hyaluronic acid in a dry climate? Yes, if you follow with a product that is going to help keep that hyaluronic acid trapped in the uppermost layers of skin, so that your skin isn't drawing from its moisture reservoirs in the lower layers. I think that's fine. And a lot of hyaluronic acid products have those types of ingredients in there already. So unless you're just using like a super basic hyaluronic acid serum, I wouldn't worry too much about it. And chances are, if you live in a dry climate, you're going to want to use a moisturizer anyway. So just make sure you put that on after the hyaluronic acid product. Black Cat and Z says, LOL, ask and it happens. Greetings from the bottom of the planet. It's Friday morning, 8:07. Oh, about 4:45 here in Michigan. Massimo, yeah, it's another question from Massimo regarding hyaluronic acid on dehydrated skin. Too risky? No, I like I said, if you're following that sequence of products, I don't think it would be too risky. Sean, I've always had pretty clear skin recently. Let me start again. I've always had pretty clear skin. Recently have spots popping up in the exact same place at the top of my cheek. Not sure why. I use BHA, but I react to benzoyl peroxide. Could I spot treat with difference? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sean, if you're getting spots in a small area and you haven't broken out there in the past, it could be an irritant contact dermatitis, which this is frustrating, but that type of reaction can look like little pimples or little acne bumps. They do, compared to like an acne pimple, an irritant contact dermatitis tends to be more superficial, whereas like with a red, angry, inflamed pimple, you see the bump, and sometimes you feel it, because sometimes they're painful, and they can be deeper in the skin. You'll kind of like feel the surface of it and be like, ooh, there's like a little nodule that's kind of underneath there. And the irritant contact reaction that looks like acne just tends to be more like a superficial bump. You might also want to try dabbing on a thin layer of hydrocortisone and see if that helps. Just use that, for maybe up to a week. And if you don't see any improvement after once daily application, then stop doing it. Hopefully that'll get you over the hump. And then if you are using the Differin, so here's what you could do in terms of layering. Because the Differin that's available over the counter is a gel, and we generally recommend layering products in order of the lightest texture to the heavier texture. You probably want to put on either the BHA or the Differin first and then top that with the hydrocortisone product. Thumbs up for the blackberry bubbly from Angel. Yeah, my mom and I are always trying the new flavors of bubbly because we're kind of obsessed. And I didn't like the raspberry. I didn't like the cranberry all that well. They tasted kind of fakey to me. But I love the blackberry. I think they just hit it out of the park with that one. And the strawberry one's okay. The Perrier strawberry, oh my God, awesome. Really expensive. I wish that one didn't cost as much. But I know now we're on a bubbly tangent. The peach and the mango are two of the other bubbly flavors, and the green apple that I think are good. I know a lot of people aren't nuts about the mango flavor. They think that one tastes kind of fake. So yeah, but that's why they have so many, so that we can all find our favorite. Oh, Megan says PC is still rocking her routine. Awesome. Swimbot says, we love and miss these chats, Brian. Please make this at least a quarter. Oh, a quarterly? How about every week? You guys are going to get sick of me. We're doing this weekly, at least for the time being. So yeah, tune in every week. Or you can come back later and watch it at your leisure. Melinda says, how do you feel about rosehip oil? I like it. I think it's a nice source of, it's a good mix of fatty acids. It's a good source of vitamin C. However, it's a good source of vitamin C in its natural state. The processing that rosehip oil goes through tends to knock down quite a bit of its vitamin C. It's one of the reasons why I'm always leery about claims where the brand will say, oh, it's got this berry or this plant extract, which is, the richest source of vitamin C in the world, or just a super great source of vitamin C. Generally, I like to see the pure vitamin in one form or another, as far as like ascorbic acid, magnesium ascorbyl phosphate, blah, 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 like I was talking about earlier. But the reason that I'm skeptical is that when you're looking at a product in a store or online, you don't always, you actually just, unless the brand is really forthcoming and transparent right there on the page or the product, you don't know what the source is or how it was prepared. For example, if rosehip oil is cold pressed as opposed to like a heat or a CO2 type extraction, then the vitamin C content is going to be much better. But if you don't know that and you're just looking at a bottle of rosehip oil in the store, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, that's going to be my vitamin C product. That's going to be my vitamin C treatment. I'm using rosehip oil on my dark spot, and it's going to work. It might work, but probably not. Well, it won't work as well as pure vitamin C. So I like it as an ingredient. It's one of the better non-fragrant plant oils. Certainly great for dry skin. But unless you know from the brand how they create their rosehip, not how they create it, but how they obtain it, what method of extraction they use, and if they have any information on how much vitamin C survives, even better. That can be tricky to get, so don't be too disappointed if they say, I'm sorry, we don't have that, or they might say, I'm sorry, that's proprietary. That's their prerogative. And then as consumers, you can say, all right, well, it's my prerogative to go to another brand, or it's my prerogative to be skeptical, or I'll trust you. Choices. Isabird says, hi, Bryan, really doubt you'll get to my question. Ha ha ha, I did. But can you reveal the percent of niacinamide in the brightening essence? Also, is it getting discontinued? The brightening essence has, I mean, I know how much niacinamide in it. It's enough to make a difference in skin tone and minor discolorations, but that percentage is enough to do that in and of itself, but the fact that it's coupled with a very effective amount of arbutin, and what else is in the brightening essence? I think there's some bearberry. It's that synergistic effect that formula has on uneven, dull skin tone, and even some dark spots. So the brightening essence has not been officially discontinued yet, but it probably will be. So if you are a fan of that product, I don't have a cutoff date. And again, it's not official. Don't call client services and say Bryan said it's being discontinued, because it might not be. But yeah, my sense of it is that it's going in that direction. We have, with a line of our size, we're always evaluating the inventory and what needs are being met and what's doing well and what are our customers telling us. That's hugely important. And the brightening essence, even though I think it's a really cool formula, we have some really cool formulas. Some of you might remember, like our self-tanners, the self-tanning foam, the self-tanning concentrate. Those are gone. Those were awesome, but not enough people liked them. And it doesn't make sense, especially from a sustainability or environmentally responsible standpoint, to hold on to a bunch of product that isn't selling. And then it gets to a point where, it's got a shelf life. We can't just keep it around forever, and you end up dumping out of it, which is hugely wasteful. And we try to minimize that wherever we can. And we've got some people at the company who have really done a fantastic job in helping to make Paula's Choice more globally, environmentally responsible. Really, it's just super, super exciting what's happening in that regard. Ruby, and I'm running out of time. More questions. Ruby says, what is the best thing to use for tiny bumps texture on the face? I would start with a BHA exfoliant applied twice daily, or 2% BHA liquid, the Resist pore refining treatment with 2% BHA. You could do the 2% BHA gel. If you have already used 2% BHA and the tiny bumps aren't improving all that much, I would bump up to a higher concentration, or try layering AHA and BHA. For example, if you're using our 2% BHA liquid, apply that as usual, and then 2 or 3 times a week, you can do it more often depending on how your skin responds, apply the Resist Advanced Smoothing Treatment, which has a blend of 10% blend strength. I want to make sure I'm not saying something that could be misleading. It's a 10% concentration of alpha hydroxy acids. That's the most straight up way to tell you. Glycolic, lactic, malic, tartaric, all those, the gang's all there. And there's some theory that the different pathways that those acids take to increase skin cell turnover, to help unclog the pores, there is a synergistic action that can really be beneficial for some people. So part of it that I mentioned in theory, it is a bit more anecdotal in that I can't point you to a study that says, like a comparative study that says when these 30 people used AHA and BHA at the same time, they had a 20% reduction in clogged pores and a 70% improvement in texture. And then this group over here that just used BHA, they just kind of plateaued and stayed the same. So, oh, the combination is better. I haven't seen such studies. Maybe they're out there somewhere. I've looked. I'm not. It's certainly possible I missed it, but you get my point. There isn't the research to back up why that combination works for some people, but we know it does. And there's no harm in trying to see if it works for you. Claire asks, have you read any research regarding how hormone replacement therapy, taking estrogen and anti-androgens, affects skin? Yes, I have. That's kind of fascinating in the sense of what would be called, I guess you could term it estrogen deprived or estrogen deficient skin. And the interesting thing about that is that a lot of people think that the drop in estrogen occurs when a woman is postmenopausal, meaning her monthly periods have stopped and she's gone, I think it's up to a year. You have to go at least a full year without having a period before you can be considered postmenopausal. Anything else, you're still menopausal. And then there's another earlier period called, not period as in the monthly cycle, an earlier point in time called perimenopause. During that whole process, though, a woman's estrogen levels are declining, and they can decline at different rates depending on an individual, your individual makeup, depending on how old you are when you start perimenopause versus how old you were when you first got your periods. And what's fascinating about that is that within the first 5 years of that experience, women can lose up to 30% of their collagen. Men lose collagen as we age too, but it's a more gradual drop off of about, usually I've seen various statistics and research in terms of when this starts, but I think I'm safe in saying that the average age for men would be around 45 when we start losing about 1 to 2% of our skin's collagen every year. No matter what, you can apply. Getting back to answer your question, you can apply male or female. You can apply ingredients to your skin that stimulate new collagen production, and that is something that you can by taking HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It has a role orally as well in terms of getting your estrogen back. With men, it's more about the drop in testosterone, and then men have estrogen too, and as they go through what some people call menopause, male hormones, the more potent form of testosterone tends to dip. The regular testosterone for most men will stay pretty steady. It's more of a gradual drop off, and then estrogen levels creep up a bit because men do have estrogen as well, just as women have testosterone, but the ratios are flipped. Where was I going with all that? I know this is a newer area. I think it's kind of exciting. And I'm glad to see that there are more products coming out on the market to address the needs of estrogen deficient skin. One of the things that you can absolutely do, Claire, if you are taking HRT, which is definitely the purview of your healthcare provider, there's pros and cons of hormone replacement therapy that you want to make sure that you carefully discuss. For certain, though, one of the best things that anyone can do to protect and preserve their skin's collagen is sun protection. You knew I was going to say that. But it becomes even more vitally important as we age and as that collagen starts to dip off. You want to keep however much collagen you can, and what you do keep, you want to keep as healthy and as normal as you can as long as possible. All right, couple more questions, then I will say adieu. I apologize. Towards the end of these chats where my voice starts to go a bit. Somebody wanted to know, West B wanted to know how old I am. Such a personal question. No, I'm kidding. I'm 45. I'll be 46 later this year. I'm not ashamed of my age. And I've worked for a skincare company for almost 20 years, and hopefully I'm a testament to that. But believe me, I still have my skin concerns. All right, Brittany says, is it okay to put PC's hyaluronic acid booster and the retinol wrinkle serum directly under the eyes? I really hope so because I love what it has done to my under eyes. Yes, Brittany, that's fine. The concern about putting any skincare product, even an eye cream, around the eyes, that you just don't want to get, you want to be careful to avoid getting the product in the eye itself. So it's really just like, yeah, duh, common sense there, right? As a general rule, what I recommend is just applying products, whether it's a serum, what you're using right there, applying it around the orbital bone. You don't need to get right up to the lash line, and I don't recommend applying most skincare products to the eyelid. It's just the skin there is super thin, and it's too easy for the product to migrate over into the tear duct, and then it's got a clear pathway into the eye itself. Most skincare ingredients, unless we're talking like acids or alcohol, like denatured alcohol, or like some essential oils, would be, don't use those on your skin, period, and definitely not close to the eye. But the majority of skincare ingredients would be fairly benign in the eye. You may get some mild discomfort or some temporary blurry vision, but even that just not fun. So just orbital bone, it'll warm up to your body temperature and migrate a bit closer anyway, but probably if you're being careful, not close enough, you don't want to get the product into the eye itself. All right, one more question. Oh, Nicole's got a good one. She says, what do you think about facial fillers to prevent aging? Facial fillers won't prevent aging. Maybe that's not what you meant, but just to clarify for those for the viewers at home, facial fillers can augment the physiologic changes that occur as we age. They don't replace, for example, they don't replace what topical skincare does. They complement it, much like I was saying earlier in the show that taking a beauty supplement that contains the right kind of ingredients can complement what your great skincare routine is doing. They reinforce each other. So for example, when you are having dermal fillers like in the nasolabial folds or in the hollows of your cheek to correct or replace restore lost facial volume, to recontour your face, they can be brilliant for that. And that is something that skincare, even the best skincare, can't do, just because of how those ingredients work and how they penetrate. And even there are no fillers that are considered, at least not the kind you'd want to use to correct signs of aging. There are no fillers that are considered permanent. You're going to need to go back and have them redone on a regular basis. I would say at minimum twice a year, because most of the hyaluronic acid-based fillers, which are the primary ones being used today for aging, they've gotten better in terms of how long they last, but you're still probably going to max out at 6 months in terms of like, at that point, you're really going to need to go back and have it done again. So it's just an ongoing expense. But they don't prevent aging. They can help you look younger longer. They can take your face back to a younger state and complement what your skincare does. I think fillers are fascinating. I am in awe of the dermatologists who have more. The best person to go to for fillers has the analytical mind of a doctor with the creative mind and eye of an artist, because there really is an art to taking, fillers literally change the shape of your face in one way or another, and you want it, of course, to be for better. I've never had fillers done. Paula has had various ones done, mostly around her mouth. She's been very happy with it. So I know that she's an advocate for them. I'm not, like I said, obviously I'm not opposed to fillers. I will do fillers when I feel the time is right. fact, I was just talking about it with my dermatologist not too long ago. More like future casting, as they say. I don't think that I need fillers right now, but when the time comes, I won't be ashamed to get them. Just very carefully, kind of taking a less is more approach. So on that note, I will be back again next week to talk to you for another hour, answer your questions. Super appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I know I didn't get to everyone's questions. I'm sorry. If I have time tomorrow, I'm going to shoot back here and try to answer more of them in the post-show recap. But if I don't respond to you, don't take it personally, and come back next week and ask your question again. And when you start typing it, just say, hey, you didn't get to my question last week, and that'll be my clue to be like, I'm gonna skip down to that question. So one way or another, we'll get you the answers you need. And if you don't find them during the show, we have a ton of information on our site in the expert advice section. You can always hit us up via our social channels. I'm on Instagram, Bryan J. Barron, Bryan with a Y, if you want to look me up and start following me on Instagram. I post occasionally. Still getting used to that whole thing. So, yeah. All right. I will stop babbling, bid you farewell for now, and we'll talk again next week. Take care.